It is 12:15, and we are going to start our Finance and Administration Committee meeting. The first item on the agenda was the communication from our ARPA partner, the Revolving Loan Fund. We were able to accommodate them and fit them into our planning and policy meeting that was held earlier today. So if you're looking for that, feel free to watch that on YouTube there. I'd like at this time to open up the floor for public comment. Seeing none, we will move forward. All right. And like to approve the agenda. All in favor?
So moved.
Support. All in favor?
Aye.
In favor.
Jacob, we were all in favor of that one.
All right. Moving forward, we're going to go to the consent resolution to approve the minutes from the April 10, 2025 Finance and Administration Committee meeting.
So moved. Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Now get ready to do some roll calls. The first item on the agenda as an action request is a statement of review. The suggested motion is to approve the statement of review.
So moved.
Rachel, would you call the roll?
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mr. Barry,
Yes.
Mr. Teeples,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mrs. Miedema,
Yes.
Mr. Dritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Bruger,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item number 2, the suggested motion is to approve the general claims in the amount of $22,680,300.83 as presented by the summary report from the April 1st, 2025 through April 30th, 2025.
So moved.
Rachel.
Mr. Barry,
Yes.
Mr. Bruger,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Teeples,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mrs. Miedema,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mr. Dritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item number 3, the suggested motion is to receive for information the detailed financial statements for the general fund and mental health fund, as well as a high level of summary for the special revenue funds through the end of the second quarter of fiscal year 2025.
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion on that one? Back to you, Rachel.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have Karen.
Oh, Karen, yeah, please, go ahead, Karen.
Karen was ready to.
We can't get away from hearing that. Came here for.
Did you have a specific question or I just want me to hit
Doug
them?
really just wants to hear your
I just
voice.
want to hear you.
He's missing you.
So there are a couple of highlights. On the first couple items, I just on that first page talked about a few of the grants. I know there's been some question. We are watching the federal grants, and there have been a few grants that we have lost. The federal grants, the public health has, and CMH, and then there was some FEMA grants that we thought we lost, and then they've reinstated them. So they were kind of on a watch list, thought we lost them, then they came back. So you will see them on your budget adjustments this month as well. I think public health, especially 898,000, CMH 88,000, and then the FEMA grants as well. It also struck me listening to Dr. Bashir's this morning, talking about Medicaid. He talks about having to provide those mental health services, and that is true. It's a requirement of the mental health code that you receive this Medicaid dollars, and we have to provide those services. But the connects there is that we have to provide the mental health services, but we also cannot operate in a deficit. So that is, that second half of that sentence is always the challenge, right? So this quarterly report, as we monitor that, there is that $8 million budget adjustment that he spoke of this morning is also going to be on your agenda today. And we talk about it in the report. The $5 million of the grant, that's a little different. That grant dollars is a little different than his straight Medicaid that he gets from the region. So that we will continue to monitor the CMH because that CCBHC grant, the $5 million adjustment, that really, that will be okay, assuming the services are provided. So those Medicaid dollars really come into this bucket and they provide those services and really pretty flexible, right? So it doesn't, it's depending on, you can come in for one service or another service, but those CCBHC dollars, it's really, people have to come in for that service, you have to provide that service, and then you get paid those grant dollars. So it's a little different, that $5 million in the current year, which is balancing our budget. So you don't see it in this quarter's report because it's on your budget adjustments, but we talk about it. But anyway, so that is, we did talk about it as being an adjustment, but we're still monitoring, we're still working with them. It is good news, but it's got a few more strings than the straight Medicaid. So I just wanted to point that out because their funding is very complicated, as he so frequently points out, and it's true 100%. But as far as the general fund, we are still seeing an underspend in some of the personnel. So we've taken a look at that as compared to maybe fiscal year 24. So when you have vacancies, you have some savings. And so there's some underspending that occurs. And so if you compare that to maybe this year, maybe $1 million or a little over $1 million, looks like we're trending halfway through the year with some vacancy savings. We'll continue to monitor that.
Karen, real quick on that, I know you're not in HR, but is that due to us not being able to fill those? I mean, I understand we're not filling them. Is there like an issue with us not being able to?
I'm not sure about that being, but there's a natural time frame, even if a position flips over. So there's a natural time that a position would just.
So it's not like the underspend is
flipping.
indicative of something, a larger problem.
I wouldn't know if there's a larger problem. I mean,
Brad, I realize you're not in HR. Okay.
I don't know that there's a larger problem. I just know that there's a natural time frame that goes on when there's a vacancy. So,
Okay.
And it's not, I think it's less than it was last year. So I would say that, I would
Less
say
of a problem if it was.
the less of a vacancy than last year. So, but that's really like where we are halfway through the year, not really seeing any significant red flags in particular that to point out, just some like fun facts, if you will.
It was fun.
Fun facts.
Did that spark any questions? I'm not seeing any.
I guess I would just
Everybody.
like to say something at this point, slightly related, to some of these grants and stuff. And that is that in March, when we went to Washington, DC, several of us met with a deputy director at Health and Human Services and discussed, among other things, wasteful and harmful grants, including the escalation of public health grants and funding related to the COVID-19 pandemic, which, as we all know, is long past. And this board tried to, rectify our public health budget earlier to reflect that. HHS agreed with us, and they assured us that COVID-19 grant funding would be discontinued, including the grants that this board had just previously approved. So HHS has now cut these wasteful grants, and we're still waiting on the cuts to the harmful grants, which more specifically are going to NGOs. So we also informed them about the importance of their careful work as we as a county are being hit with an increase in autism services, and that targeted funding is important. So when we're careful about waste and fluff, we have more money for critical needs, of which there are many. So while we're seeing some cuts to grants and specific funding, I do think that there's a heart there for specific needs of people like autism services. I talked to several people about that, and I do think there is some watchfulness going on, Medicaid specific funding. So anyways, just wanted to add that context to some of these cuts that we're seeing.
Thank you. Commissioner Moss.
Yeah, if I could just add to that, to get even more specific, there were 4 commissioners who met with RFK Junior's HHS. It was Commissioners Rhodey, Wenzel, Miedema, and myself. We explained what had happened, that we had rejected the COVID grant in 2024. It got held over and then approved in 2025 by a Republican-led board. We kind of explained how that happened, and we asked them to terminate that $900,000 grant. And they immediately assured us that they would. So I'm very thankful that they did, and we'll continue to work against things like wasteful COVID spending and harmful grants.
Any further comments, Karen?
Nothing.
Thank you, Karen.
Rachel?
Mr. Teeples.
Yes.
Mr. Juritzma.
Yes.
Mr. Bruger.
Yes.
Mrs. Miedema.
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel.
Yes.
Mr. Barry.
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey.
Yes.
Mr. Moss.
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra.
Yes.
Mr. Kyers.
Yes.
Mr. Bonema.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, next up is number 4. It's the Grand Haven Courthouse exterior caulking. The suggested motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the contract with Ram Construction Service of Michigan for caulking services at the Grand Haven Courthouse for a total cost of $167,986.
So moved.
Support.
It's a lot of caulk.
Thanks.
Do we have facilities?
Might be more labor than caulk.
The labor. Yeah. Hi, Abby.
Hello, good afternoon. My name's Abby Mosier. I'm the Assistant Director, currently serving Interim Director of Facilities. We have John Vargo, our Project Manager, so I will let him tell you more about the project.
Welcome.
Hello. So this is for the removal and the replacement of the caulking on the exterior of the Grand Haven Courthouse. This will include control joints, exterior around windows, doors, caps. We've met the life cycle of the caulking that we have.
Have we seen some leaking issues, and are we addressing some issues?
We have in the past, yeah, but we're well over our life cycle of that caulk. So
What is the life cycle about? How many
the
years?
stuff that's currently on there was about 5 to 10 years. The new stuff will be a silicone, so it'll be about 20 year.
Oh, good. Okay. Any questions? All right, Rachel?
Mr. Kyers.
Yes.
Mr. Moss.
Yes.
Mrs. Miedema.
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel.
Yes.
Mr. Barry.
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra.
Yes.
Mr. Bruger.
Yes.
Mr. Teeples.
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey.
Yes.
Mr. Juritzma.
Yes.
Mr. Bonema.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Rachel. Next up is number 5, the assessing services for Crockery Township. The suggested motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the contract to provide assessing services for Crockery Township.
So moved.
Support. It's a race.
Man, it's like a crowd in here. It's great. Any questions? Brian, would you like to give a couple words?
That I will just say a few words on this, and the things that I have to say really pertain to the next 5 agenda items. So I'm not going to say it 5 times. So when I was here for my annual report a month ago, I kind of let you guys know that these contracts were coming, and now they're before you. So I'll just kind of walk you through the process with these. These jurisdictions, all 5 of them are currently contracted with the county to provide assessing services through June 30th of this year. And these contracts are just to, you might say, to extend or to renew that contract for an additional 3-year period. We've done all of our contracts on a 3-year period after the initial contract to get them all up to a common date. So these are just a 3-year renewal. All of these contracts we bid at cost. We do the best that we can to determine what our costs are to fulfill these contracts. And that's how we come up with the number in each of the jurisdictions. The only other thing I was going to say on this one is that all of these contracts have already been signed by the local jurisdictions, and we've had, I think in all of the instances, representatives from my department at all of those board meetings, and all of them had nothing but good things to say. So, and I'll say that speaks highly of our assessing division staff, especially our assessing division managers, and the quality of the work that they provide. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Not
All right.
seeing any. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Brian. Yeah. All right. Rachel?
Mr. Bruegger,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers.
Yes.
Mr. Barry,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mr. Dritzma,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
Yes.
Mr. Teeples.
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. Let's move on to Hudsonville. The suggested motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the contract to provide assessing services for the city of Hudsonville.
So moved.
Support.
All right. Looks like our questions have been answered, so let's go to the roll.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Bruegger,
Yes.
Mr. Dritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers.
Yes.
Mr. Barry,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
Yes.
Mr. Teeples.
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Number 7, Blendon Township. The suggested motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the contract to provide assessing services for Blendon Township.
So moved.
Support. So feeling comfortable about voting? Let's vote.
Mr. Dritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Barry,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Teeples,
Yes.
Mr. Bruegger,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Excellent. Number 8, the suggested motion for Grand Haven is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the contract to provide assessing services for the city of Grand Haven.
Support.
So moved.
We can make that work.
Bad word, sorry.
I think we're ready to vote.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra.
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
Yes.
Mr. Dritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Bruegger,
Yes.
Mr. Teeples.
Yes.
Mr. Barry,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, we'll stay in the north and go to Coopersville. Let's approve, the suggested motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the contract to provide assessing services for the city of Coopersville.
So moved.
Support.
No questions there either, so we'll go ahead and call the roll.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mr. Barry,
Yes.
Mr. Teeples,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
Yes.
Mr. Dritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Bruegger,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema.
Yes.
Motion passes.
On to number 10, Public Health Clinic and the ADA remodel. The suggested motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the contract with Fishbeck, Thompson, and Carr and Huber for professional services as they relate to the ADA remodel of the Public Health Clinic located on James Street for a total cost of $147,500. And we have facilities
So
back.
moved.
So moved. Support.
We're back.
You're back. Welcome. Want to walk us through a few details?
Yeah, so this will be for the proposal for Fishbeck to provide the construction documentation, the administration, for the ADA remodel of the clinic side, as well as restrooms on the administration side. of the public health building. This will look at the exam rooms, restrooms, creating a mothering room, looking at removing and replacing some of the restrooms that are there, as well as their lobby. This will help with any sensory issues that they may have, as well as bring us up to the new universal design that they're using.
So we're going to be widening some doorways, allowing for wheelchair access. Yeah.
Yep. Taking some, the building was built back in 87 and has not been renovated in the restrooms since then.
Yeah.
So this will renovate the restrooms so there's more accessibility for the clients that are coming in.
For a period of time in my childhood, I was in a body cast where my legs were spread in such a way where they literally had to turn me sideways to get me through a doorway. So sparing future children like me the indignity of going through that process is something I can really appreciate and vote for. So, yeah.
What's the time frame from the construction part of it, the remodel?
This would probably not be kicked off until October of this year.
Okay.
By the time we get the construction documentation together, the RFP
Yep.
process.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I think we're comfortable to call the roll.
Mr. Barry,
Yes.
Mr. Bruger,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Teeples,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mrs. Miedema,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mr. Juritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Number 11, Power DMS Agreement. The suggested motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the 5-year contract with Power DMS at a total cost of $160,082.63.
So moved.
Or
Is there anybody here to talk? All right, we've got our sheriff with you, us. Four.
Good afternoon. My understanding, for the most part, this is a consolidation of two current contracts. Power has a software suite that we had used for a long time to keep track of our field training and corrections training officers, the training tasks that they go through, making sure that that's happening, and being able to score it correctly and do all that sort of thing. We've now added some of their services as their software suite has kind of advanced to help some of our operations in more of the training records than just the field training, but also the accreditation process that we'll be looking into in the coming years, as well as some other things. They were a couple months off, and so this is a consolidation of those two contracts and then the setting of the price for the next 5 years.
Any questions? All right, I think we're ready to call the roll.
Mr. Teeples,
yes.
Mr. Juritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Bruger,
Yes.
Mrs. Miedema,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mr. Barry,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Number 12, Cisco Switch Refresh. The suggested motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the contract with Sentinel Technologies for network switch configuration and installation services at designated Ottawa County facilities in support of the county's network infrastructure refresh initiative at a cost of $273,428.28.
So moved.
Or
just flying through today, aren't we?
Well,
That's
mission.
right.
we're going to work.
This item, as the next two items, are part of our capital refresh for equipment. We refresh our switches about every 7 years or so. This is actually supports 57 switches, about a half a dozen or a dozen of them with some professional service installation where we can't have downtime like in the jail.
What's a switch?
It's a box with a lot of
Oh, really?
plugs into it.
It's not what I
That-
would think of it.
That controls your phone,
Yeah.
your computer, everything goes through switches that then feed into bigger switches that then connect via fiber to one another to create one big massive network.
Thank you for the question,
Yeah.
Mr. Teeples.
Don't ask what a voice router,
I
a
know.
voice gateway router
Somebody's
is.
got to do it.
We'll have to get Mike up here for that.
Span that we're expecting to get out of these switches?
At least 7 years. I mean, we're going to, last few times we've cycled through this, we've used a lot of professional services to do this. In this particular case, we're going to put 50 of them or so on a shelf and just start swapping them out ourselves over time as we have time available.
All right.
Just a couple, just a quick.
Oh, you have a question?
Yeah, I do. I think this one, along with the next two, were the items that came before us for preliminary conversation, correct, at the work session or the special meeting we had on, it,
Last one was, yes.
correct?
Yeah.
This one and then the next two,
The last one was the one purpose of the
the data center refresh? Okay. I will hold my comments till then.
Fair enough. I think we are ready to call the roll.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mr. Barry,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Bruger,
Yes.
Mr. Teeples,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mr. Dritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Number 13 on today's agenda is the Cisco router and voice gateway refresh. The suggested motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the contract with Sentinel Technologies for network router configuration and installation services at designated Ottawa County facilities in support of the county's network infrastructure refresh initiative at a total cost of $144,012.14.
So moved.
Support.
Do you
very
have
similar.
anything more to add?
Very similar,
Very
except this has to do with, converting voice analog to digital systems in our telephone system.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and vote.
Mr. Bruger,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Barry,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mr. Dritzma,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
Yes.
Mr. Teeples,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Number 14 is the data center refresh phase 2. The suggested motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners a contract with People Driven Technologies for phase 2 of the data center refresh at a cost of $1,998,156. $2 million.
So moved.
Second.
So we had a briefing. We sat down with People Driven after we got them under contract, and we talked about alternatives and design going forward. And this is what we concluded. This is what we all, what I professionally support, what my team professionally supports, and what our professional service vendor has recommended.
So
Commissioner Miedema.
I just have a conversation that I wanted to have because we spoke about, Paul, you brought forward to the board your concern because of the cost uptick because of the tariff situation with China. And it's my understanding that those tariffs have been now dropped. And so I'm wondering how that plays into this particular package that you have presented before us today.
This cost does not include any tariff increases. So if you take what you were briefed on, and you take that tariff part out, it still leaves in the Broadcom VMware, but does not include any tariff activity. And we've got 90 days. So as soon as we get an approval and a PO, we'll get equipment coming.
Okay.
as
I just
quickly as
wanted to make
possible.
sure that the tariff hadn't been reflected in the cost and that we weren't supposed to be going back and taking a look at minimizing that amount. So,
Not at all.
okay, thank you.
Mr. Teeples.
So when we had that special meeting and you talked about the emergency need for the cash, the $100 million and that kind of thing, you were going to go back with Karen and
Yes.
fiscal and find out where that money was going to come from. Did you guys figure that out?
Yes, we did. I don't know if Karen wants to talk to this, but yes, she identified within the existing capital improvement
Yeah.
planning
Okay.
funding to support this.
Great. Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Moss.
One quick question. Curious on why the I've never worked with VMware's Foundation. Just curious on why the cost is so high. Is it per user pricing or something, or how does that work? Or per CPU or?
They went to what, you want to talk to this, Mike? It changed dramatically when Broadcom bought them.
Okay. Went up.
Significantly by like 150%, yes.
Wonderful.
Why are we changing vendors at this point? I mean, that is just an obscene amount of increase.
We're not changing vendors at this point. We're going to continue with VMware. It's just owned by a different company now. Nothing changed, just.
No, I'm saying why we should be looking for somebody else.
Yeah, we looked at other alternatives like VX Rails or Hyper-V and a couple of other open source environments. And we all concluded this is still the best direction, most stable direction for us, for the county.
Yeah, VMware is extremely popular industry over many industries.
Can you talk a little bit about that, Commissioner Moss?
Just high level, the VMware is one of the most robust and well-used platforms for IT infrastructure. I've used it. Everyone I know has used it. It's not my favorite, but that comes from an IT implementation standpoint. It just is what it is. So as being one of the most popular, it's also one of the most trusted. I could see why Broadcom bought them and the price might go up. There's a high demand.
All right. If we are ready to move forward and vote, we'll vote. We are.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Bruegger,
Yes.
Mr. Dritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mr. Barry,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
Yes.
Mr. Teeples,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Thank you. Number 15, the tax year 2025 millage rate. This happens to be one of the final steps of the 2025 budget cycle. But to go to the motion is to approve and forward to the board the resolution establishing millage rates for the tax year 2025.
So moved.
Support.
Karen, do you want to speak to this for a second?
So when we prepare the 25 budget, we work with equalization and treasury to estimate the tax values and use the millage rates and that we're proposing. When we do the budget hearing, we have our truth in taxation hearing as well, which is required by law as part of setting the tax rate. And then fast forward into just last month, equalization brings the tax values forward. So all that information now becomes available, and now we are ready to actually set the tax rates. The locals are getting ready to bill the taxes. So this resolution is really, as you said, the final step in in the budget process, which is setting the tax rate for the 2025 tax year. The county is allowed to keep all the growth in the county. So those tax values, I think Brian probably says this a lot clearer than I do, but when you look at tax values, we're allowed to keep tax growth of any new value. And then we are limited under Headley up to CPI. So there's that factor that we are limited by. So you begin to see that through our rollback in our millage rate. So that's why on the very last page of the packet, you can see that our maximum allowable millage rate from 2024 is moving from 5.7311 to 5.6708. So that is impacts each each separate millage of the county. And so that those proposals are changing, moving forward. And then that in turn, the county, because we already at 3.9, we are already proposing to levy less than our maximum allowable. So when we're building our budget, we're building it on that 3.9. But for example, E911, Parks, Road, and CMH, their millage rate is tweaked a little bit. And so they are, they're building their budgets on a little bit lower millage rate every year. Now, the only thing that can adjust that millage rate back up is a vote. Now, if you remember when the road commission came forward and asked to have that agenda, that language added to the ballot proposal, they went to continue their millage. They didn't vote to increase their millage. So they were making that decision to increase or to continue. They said to continue. So that's why their millage rate is continuing on, and it did not pop back up to where they had started from way back 10 years ago or whatever. So they are just continuing on that same plane, rolled back as well this year, even though last August the voters approved their millage again. So this is just a continuation of that same trend line that they have been on since 2015, I think, or 16, something like that. So this resolution gives the authority for the board chair to sign the L429, which then gives the local units the authority to include our millage rate on their tax bill, which then they send that money to the treasurer and they distribute that money to all of the units.
All right. Any questions? Commissioner Teeples?
Just to clarify something you said and what I'm saying here, I think you said this, and I think it should be emphasized that there's no increase in this resolution on these mills, and there's a slight decrease across the county. That's an accurate statement, right?
There's no increase in millage rates.
Right. Yeah, and slightly decreased in all those areas that you mentioned.
Slightly decreased in the rates.
Yep.
The taxable values did increase.
Yeah, well, that you can't do much about that, right? But at least what we're doing by holding millage rates, I think it's a good thing. So, good deal.
Commissioner Moss?
I have a quick question. I'm wondering what 0.1 mils out of the operating, millage represents in revenue to the county approximately.
Boy, let's see. So of the, I should know this, but I
That's
don't want
okay.
to misquote you. I don't want to misquote. And I don't want to get mixed up with the 0.1 and the 1 mil.
Yep. The one would be real big.
One would be really big. So let me think. I think it's, I want to get back with you on that, just to be sure. I think it's, so I want to say 15 million, but I want to be sure.
That's kind of what I was.
I'm thinking 15 million, but I want to confirm that.
Okay. My second question is, I'm wondering if the board is interested in a conversation about reducing our rate. So we've maintained, at least in the operating, 3.9 for quite some time. Maintaining is good. I'm very thankful that that has been an obvious commitment of the county. Taxes have continued to go up for residents, especially because they're related to property taxes, and values continue to go up significantly to the max every year, especially the last few years. Schools continue to pass, put up bond proposals and things like that, and additional millages get put on Ottawa County, including one recently countywide for the OAISD. Just curious if anyone is interested in talking about a reduction.
No, I absolutely would join you in that conversation. I think that would be a fantastic point to add to this when we do a strategic plan with the new administrator. I think we should definitely add that for a discussion topic.
I'd appreciate that discussion topic. I think that'd be great. If we take that direction, does that mean that there wouldn't be an opportunity in this budget year to have that discussion? It would be a year from now, essentially?
I think that's the way we typically do things, but yes.
Is there any appetite in looking at it now, going from 3.9 to 3.8?
Is there a time frame that we're working under on this resolution? Is there a date we need to have it passed by?
So as I said, this is the last step. So this is our 2025 for county general fund. So this is our 2025 revenue that funds the fiscal year 25 budget for county operating. So as the quarterly report I just provided you, we're 6 months into the year. So this funds our current operations for county. So we are 6 months into, so you would be spreading any revenue reductions over 6 months instead of 12. And so, or I guess even a shorter period by the time, you made that decision. And the locals, actually, we kind of rushed this on here because the locals really wait for this to print their tax bills. So we didn't want to bring it in June because by the time it got approved by the board, it would be near the end of June. And so they really print their tax bills, go out July 1st. So they're really waiting for this.
Sounds like the unintended consequences may be a reason to definitely do some additional planning to give this a chance of taking effect.
Right. So we have conversations during budget. So like about revenues and that at that point, it would be a great time to talk about it.
Yeah. What time of the year are you having that? Is that the last 2 months, essentially?
The budget process.
Well, for this tax rate, if we were to propose a tax rate change for 2026, next year.
So we're having those conversations right now.
Yeah. All right. Start talking.
Well, and, maybe if we're looking at, forward planning, maybe one good place to start would be as we're having conversations for this next fiscal year, we could maybe start to look at where can we pull back, where can we save a little bit? And that might help us, maybe we don't do a change in the millage rate right this second, but that might help us see the next year, what kind of potential do we have to do some sort of a pullback if we can figure out how to have some more savings this year.
Well, and I realize that our finance department is working and our administrator is working with a lot of department directors on having discussions about what's mandatory spending versus what's discretionary. And that's going to take some time to pull that together, but you are working towards that. And so having a list like that to work from, I think could be very helpful for our future discussions. And the next administrator would feel, like he's being supported with what's actually mandatory versus discretionary. Right.
I'm definitely supportive of this board looking at a reduction at some point in time. And I think my request would be that we are having more conversations brought to this committee, that we can see some of what the discussions that are happening from fiscal, because if they're working through some of that, I would like to actually see what they're working through so that we're not finding ourselves in the same crux next year then and saying, well, we looked, but there's not anything that we feel like we can cut on. So I hope that that's a legit thing that's happening versus just a talk.
Well, and budget discussions really begin is it January, February-ish, Kieran, or is it even earlier than that? So, and we're kind of even late in the whole budget thing at this point,
Yeah,
but,
for 2025, but I will,
Right.
just to assure you, I've had direct meetings with our current administrator, and there is a plan that's being worked through with time and dates. You know, it's tentative, but it's goal setting to be able to accomplish exactly this. So I think real things are happening. We're not just saying conversations are happening, they're actually happening.
I would request, if you feel like it would be information that would be helpful for the full board to just, so it doesn't come all at once, maybe putting a discussion item once in a while on your finance agenda and just say, here's some conversations we've been having, so that it doesn't come to the rest of the board as a surprise later.
Yeah, no, I've mentioned it, I think, in just about every single finance and administration meeting, that this is a goal that I've set while being chair, that I'd like to
Yep.
see this be a working list that we can all hold, that we all have access to. We can all ask questions and really make sure that every dollar that we're spending of the people's money is in its highest and best use. And, you know, that's something that when you're knocking doors, everybody's concerned about wasteful spending, and it just feels like government spends millions and millions like it's nothing. And you know, here's something where, you know, I've always been very impressed with the amount of oversight that I think our department heads have over the dollars being spent. I want to compliment them. But this is, you know, this is a great chance to trust but verify, right? That's really what my intent is. So, and this is not new to Ottawa County. You know, Administrator Rosema shared with me that we've actually gone through this process before. It is a technical process. It's time consuming, and we want to do it right. We don't want to rush it, but we want to do it right. And I know that this is part of the process of being good stewards and providing oversight. Commissioner Moss.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to echo support for what you just said, and thank you for starting the process. I know it's going to take some time, and you know, now is not a great time to make a change towards the end of the process for this year. And want to also recognize we do have a lot of non-mandated, you know, programs and services that we offer. So taking a look at that, I think, is a wise move. And then it gets us talking about priorities. What are our true priorities, and where are we focusing taxpayer dollars? Are they on core government services or not? There's always a mix, but having the discussion then will allow us to better determine the mix. So, yeah, thank you.
You bet.
I'll echo exactly what you guys have all said. This is probably the first time maybe the administration is hearing from the board more than just one person or two people at a time about a direction that we may want to be looking at. So when we have that strategic planning process, to start to send a message to the administration, should be a goal of yours, not just listening to fiscal to tell us this is the best we can do, but hear a direction from us, what we'd like you to be looking at. Will be important. And so this may be the first time as a board, we've talked about this like this, and I'm glad. And so we'll talk about it more.
I'd like to mention though, we did this before when I was here. And Gary remembers, we cut it like 3-4 years in a row, and we cut it too far, and it'll come back and bite you. So just remember, our population is growing. We have the fastest growing population in the county, and it's our responsibility to serve them. So keep that in mind as we look at the budget.
Yeah, I echo what both of you just said. I agree. One thing that I am very interested in is trying to set an example. We have increasing taxes across the county from school districts and other areas. They are not, it does not seem like they are seeking to maintain their rates necessarily or look for ways to be creative to cut. And taxes per family are going up. So I'm thankful we don't have problems like other areas of Michigan. I think maybe Midland is seeing some double taxation, and families are actually being taxed out of their homes because they have 2 layers of property tax being applied. So I'm thankful we don't have, you know, issues like that, but trying to set an example internally and for the county, and asking school districts and others to really take a closer look at what they're doing to try to reduce the overall tax burden, is something that I would like to do.
Mr. Administrator.
I guess one of the things, and I'm all for you guys being good stewards of the county money. One of the things I think you always have to keep in the back of your mind, when we built these state-of-the-art buildings 20 years ago, they were state-of-the-art then. They aren't necessarily state-of-the-art right now. A lot of money gets put on the tops of these buildings every year that you don't see. The HVAC system, the air controllers, everything that you put into a facility has a life. Whether it's technology that Paul puts in, whether it's some of the equipment that the sheriff uses in his day-to-day operations, there's a lot of ongoing costs. And I think we've really gotten to notice that with our facilities. Just taking, upgrading a few bathrooms to ADA standards is a major, major investment. So again, as you move forward, you got to understand that the cost of doing county business constantly is going up. The architects, when you want walls taken out and moving things around in the Grand Haven County building, that's all major expenses. And so again, as you look at, reducing these millages, you got to look at, what you're missing out on doing. So you can only put those processes in the back seat for just so long. So, but again, it's all based on doing it the right way and, not waiting until it's a major, major undertaking either. So, but your new county administrator will get a packet of stuff that I'm sure they're going to have to understand and look at in the next few years. And again, Karen and her staff do a good job of putting a lot of that stuff in perspective. Every year, department heads and myself included over the years, we come and ask for more and more and more. And because we want to provide, the best service with the best equipment, and that takes a little bit of consideration by you folks. So,
Thank you, Gary. All right. Well, I think we're ready to vote on this one. So, Rachel?
Mr. Juritzma.
Yes.
Mr. Barry. Mrs. Medema.
Yes.
Mr. Moss.
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey.
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra.
Yes.
Mrs. Wenzel.
Yes.
Mr. Kyers.
Yes.
Mr. Teeples.
Yes.
Mr. Bruger.
Yes.
Mr. Bonema.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. That was the final item there. Next. I got
excited.
excited to be at the end of the agenda. All right, number 16, the 2025 budget adjustments. The suggested motion is to approve and forward to the Board of Commissioners the FY 2025 budget adjustments per the attached schedule.
So moved.
Support.
Commissioner Teeples, did you have a question on this one?
Yeah.
Did I think we need Karen then.
Right, could you hear my mind?
I could hear the echo from over here.
So I asked Karen, I says, look, this is complicated stuff and it's fine print. It's hard for me to do this. So I asked her to at least highlight what we're adjusting here, at least. Can you help us out, Karen?
Sure. So when the budget is adopted, the resolution basically establishes what we call the legal level of control, which is, in general, the budget is adopted by department, by fund. So, for example, fiscal services is in the general fund. So within my department, I can move money between office supplies and, office supplies and contract services to fund something that I need to buy, but I can't move my budget from fiscal services to administration. unless I get board approval to do that in the general fund. And I can't move my budget from general fund to IT unless I get board approval to do that, because that's in a separate fund. So there's like legal level of control. So during the year, there's bound to be things that come up that money needs to move around to resolve things that come up. And that's what these adjustments do. And so we, across the top, we just give you high level. We don't show you every line. And we break it down by total revenues and total expenses, but we're basically just tie back to the number, the fund, the department. We try to give an explanation of what we're doing. And then total revenues, plus or minus. That is in people terms, not accountant terms. So a plus is a plus, a minus is a minus. And then we just, is it going up? Is it going down? And just try to tell you what we're doing, and is it going up and is it going down? And so, for example, the very first one, Parks was starting a new program. They did some revenue estimates in the beginning, and they knew they wanted to do a new program, but they didn't have it fully vetted when they did their budget. And now they have fully worked out that program, and they did just, they only did the revenue when they first did it. And now they've come along and said, well, no, we're gonna have more revenue, but we're gonna have some expenses too. And so we're just helping them. We're just recognizing some additional revenue and some expenses. The second amendment there at the top of the page is that mental health budget adjustment, where we're getting 8.5 million more in revenue, and they're going to have 8.5 million more in expenses. That's those two Medicaids I spoke of and Dr. Bashir spoke of earlier. The one after that is the it's a mental health that's that they had lost some of the grant money, so they're actually, this is CMH again, they are some grant money that they lost. They are using PA2 dollars that are available to them through the LRE. They're getting some additional grant dollars and some additional grant expenditures, replace some lost grant revenue that they had. There's no minus here. I had asked about that, and you'll probably see that on a future agenda. So you just go down, and so it's just pluses and minuses of us basically making corrections for changes of what might happen. Sometimes we estimate grants when we adopt the budget, and then you'll see usually earlier in the fiscal year where we come back in when we get the actual amounts, where we'll come in and you'll see a bunch of corrections to actual. And so we're cleaning everything up. So we just want to make sure that nobody overspends, because if it's not in there, they can't spend it. And so the capital projects are a little different. Capital projects are adopted for the life of the project, and it's based on the project. So what I had said about departments, capital projects is based on the project. So when Paul Klimas was here earlier, I think it's right at near to the bottom. Yeah, I think it's the very last one. The very last budget adjustment is moving funding from some capital projects to the project that Paul had. So it's moving $828,655 from some projects that we had either had funding available or were other funded in a different way. And then we allocated it to this project. So there were projects that already existed, and then we moved it to this project. And so that he was able to complete the project that he needed to complete. So projects are probably a little unique in that sense. That's both in parks. Parks has projects, and then in general, county CIP projects. They're life to date because they generally take longer than a year. Everyone else's appropriations get to the end of the year, they lapse.
Okay.
Does that help?
So if a department, like say the sheriff's department has some fund that they under expense, or, they have excess, right? A grant, they don't use whatever else. Does that money, that excess go back, does that stay in that department for use in another way that you work with them? Or do you put that back in the general fund to be used somewhere else potentially? How does that work?
It depends on if the money is restricted. So if it's a donation, or if it is specific, maybe his contracts, he manages all those local contracts that is restricted to that activity. We keep that separate.
Okay.
Parks millage, we keep separate. If it is unrestricted, it goes back to the general
I
fund.
see. Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Barry.
I think a specific example that maybe you could clarify for me is there is an item here, 07, was that, it's 867, where the sheriff department had a grant from the Department of Justice. Grant award was 549,800, but it looks like there's a negative to the 95,000 and some change there. So I'm assuming that this was money that was not spent in the grant. I'm just trying to understand the process.
It 95,000?
Yes.
Connect and Protect grant?
Yeah, Department of Justice grant.
Looks
Looks like it was originally 500, almost 550,000.
So I think it's probably, they probably estimated an amount to come forward to 2025. And I think in this particular case, we spent more than we thought we were going to spend in 2024 because this is a fiscal year 22 to 25 grant.
Oh,
So
okay.
we had to guess, and we didn't think we were going to spend as much as we did. And then we spent a little bit more. So we're adjusting it so that we have the correct amount to finish out the year. So, because if we left it there, they could actually accidentally spend it. So we want to make sure that when they're looking at their general ledger, they're seeing what they have available to them.
So then another example, the $900,000 grant from Health and Human Services, looks like the grant did capture $8,153, and we've got is this a debit to their general account for $891,847?
So they were not penalized for the expenditures that they had incurred. And so then, but they didn't send us any money because we hadn't incurred any expenses. So that other funding just isn't available. So we basically just removed the appropriation and the revenue estimate from their budget.
So how does that affect operations then, to have an amount that large suddenly not available in the budget?
So this one in particular, I think it had just been added. So they were just gearing up to do something because I think it had just been added. So then it was reduced.
Apparently they were able to.
They would be better able to answer that. They were just gearing up. I know they were just talking about an RFP with purchasing, but so in some cases, it could be significant. When you're reducing a budget like that, in this case, it was like, we have it, we don't, we have it, we don't have it, we have it, we don't have it. So, public health would be better to answer that question, but
It's a little bit of a whipsaw there.
Yeah.
But
I could add a little context if it would help.
Okay.
So they had a full budget, 17, 18 million or whatever it is. Last year, the board rejected that 900,000 because it was COVID funds. This year it came up again. It's 900,000 COVID funding available kind of
I didn't see
extra.
COVID funding in the name of the grant here at all.
Right,
Just
you-
for clarity's sake.
Right. In February 22, when the board voted on it, when this board voted on it to approve it and we had extensive discussions about it,
I just want to make sure we're talking about the same thing.
it is, it's the 900,000 that some of us asked HHS to terminate. So it was actually extra. You could think of it kind of as additional funding through the federal government, through the state of Michigan, that they could charge if they had certain things that fit the grant category, but it doesn't affect their actual operating budget. They still have the full amount.
It appears they were able to use $8,153 for
Yes.
acceptable services that the grant could be applied to. So
Yes. So that 8,153,
saved Ottawa County taxpayers money.
well, no, not really, because the funding the way they were using this grant is they already had a budget set. They were just going to try to tap into this for anything that met the qualifications of that above and beyond their initial budget. So they still have their initial budget.
Right. But
Yeah.
it looks like they were able to get 8,153 from the grant.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And they would have continued to use it, I think, over time.
Sure.
For sure. Yeah. That's what the health department had committed to do, is
Are there
continue.
any
using it.
other adjustments that we want to discuss today? Are we ready to vote?
I'd like to make a
Question.
comment on that same line item, if I may. I just want to I think we should be reminded that it was presented initially as a way to have money saved for an emergency. As you can notice, they already spent $8,153. To me, that was not for an emergency that was brought on our community. So from my perspective, it's a misuse of dollars. And I'm thankful to see the rest being returned.
I mean, that's a big allegation to make, Commissioner Miedema. I'd like public health to have the opportunity to respond to that before, that comes out of this platform.
Well, I'm
but
just saying that was the conversation we had as a board here.
you know what it was spent on?
I'm saying that when we talked about this line item originally, it was talked about, many board members here talked about how important it was to make sure we had this emergency fund. And what I'm saying is there's not a pandemic that's starting right now. I'm just saying that.
Commissioner Miedema, I was at those discussions as well, and this was much broader than just COVID. It was for any infectious disease. I don't know how the $8,000 was spent. Maybe you do, but to say that it was a misuse of funds is a big jump to make at this stage. I don't think we should do that without them being present to be able to answer that.
Well, I would say any use of the $900,000 grant is a misuse of funds. That's my perspective.
Well, it would be eligible under the grant. So, I mean,
Right.
to say it was a misuse of funds, it would be eligible under what the state would be allowable.
Yeah, I guess I'm saying from our board perspective, for me personally, to approve a grant for this capacity is a misuse. That's what I'm stating.
Just so long as it's your perspective, not the full board's.
Right, that's my perspective.
If I was going to guess, I would think some of that may have been some testing around bird flu that was in Ottawa County this spring.
Or measles.
Commissioner
Use it.
Bonema, could I speak?
But that's all
Commissioner Rhodey?
guessing at this point.
So I think the higher level context of all of this is the fact that this was COVID funding, which was the discussion that we had with HHS. When a pandemic is over, COVID funding is no longer needed. As we know, billions of dollars is being rolled back by DOGE for unnecessary federal funding. This stuff falls in that category. So regardless of what we think about it or don't think about it, it was cut because it was waste, it was fluff, it was not needed, and it's gone. So.
All right, well,
I
let's
have
go.
a separate one.
Commissioner Moss.
Thank you. I see on here, there's a line item for $10,000 with the Michigan Public Health Institute. It's 07-1447. So I'd just like to ask the board to make a consideration. MPHI is a radical far left DEI promoting, racial social justice promoting, gun violence is a public health emergency promoting organization. They're pushing a lot of very harmful ideology very publicly on their website and their materials and everything else. And I'm not sure we want them to train our public health staff. Well, and I'm not sure we want to fund the training either. So I guess I would make a motion that we reject the 10,000.
Yeah, that's already been settled.
It's just a motion. I mean,
Not here in a second. I think we will move forward then. Rachel, would you call the roll?
Mrs. Wenzel,
Yes.
Mr. Moss,
no.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Kyers,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mrs. Miedema,
Yes.
Mr. Dritzma,
Yes.
Mr. Bruger,
Yes.
Mr. Teeples,
Yes.
Mr. Barry,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you, Rachel. Moving past discussion items, as there are none, we are going to ask our treasurer, Cheryl Clark, to join us. Only good news today. We're hungry. Okay.
Okay. Let's see. So I submitted my report for April 30 investments, and not much changed. The Fed voted to maintain the rates, and they are staying steady right now. So really not a lot going on. And everything, we comply with our investment policy. So do you have any questions? Keep it short and sweet.
Great.
They're going to drop the rate?
Not yet. So I did include in there some quotes from the, let's see, it was on the GovMic thing. They quoted the Fed chair, Jerome Powell. He asserted the costs of waiting to see the impact of tariffs on the economy are fairly low, and as such, it's not a situation where the Fed can be preemptive. However, the Fed is prepared to make a complicated and challenging judgment before changing policy, which considers how far the Fed's dual mandate goals of maximum employment and price stability are from their targets.
Right.
So they're watching it.
Thank you for that. Any questions or discussion? I think we're all set. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. This brings up our second opportunity for public comment. Would the two members of the public like to make comment? All right, I think we would all like to move on. So thank you everyone for your hard work, and have a good week.